I can't actually say whether or not I'm ready. I don't know what to expect.
That's the beauty of this.
We're live.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Truth Talks Live, a production of the Truth Movement New Brunswick. I'd like to thank Sally and Natasha and Courtney, our regular panelists, for joining us this evening. And we do have a guest, Chris Collins. He is the former Speaker of the House of the Legislature here in New Brunswick. He was an MLA for, I think, 12 years. And welcome to the show, Chris. We're very happy to have you. We're talking about, how people identify with politics. My own personal story, I think a little bit. We've talked and chatted for some time, and, I ended up leaving the Liberal Party. And so I find a lot of people are, they say they're conservative, for example, because their family's conservative and they always vote conservative, this kind of idea. So I find like the hyper partisanship is not conducive to a, really good democracy, robust democracy, at least. So would you like to just like maybe start off with telling us a little bit more about yourself and your thoughts on like finding a political home, or how people feel that they can best identify politically to effect the best change?
Well, I'm glad to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's very nice to meet you all. I was involved in sales for national companies and international companies for 25 years. After that, I had a son who was sick, and my son had a heart condition, and I went to my MLA, who was Bernard Lord, who is a nice man, and went to see him because kids in New Brunswick can't get financial assistance to travel outside the province, and we have absolutely no children's hospital. In fact, we spend more money on transfer fees to the IWK every year than we do for all of the expenses associated with all of our pediatric wards in New Brunswick combined, to give you an idea. So I was approached by the Liberal Party and asked to run for them. And I was honored by that. In 87, I ran as a candidate. In 1987, I ran as a candidate for the NDP. I always had an interest in politics, and I figured I seen it as an opportunity to learn, and I ran, and I learned quite a bit. And I didn't run again until 2003. So I found myself and my policies lined up very well. I was welcomed into the party by Sean Graham, who's a real nice gentleman, and I ran as a candidate in Moncton East against Bernard Lord, and we did very well. I think we were only maybe 500 swing votes away from defeating a sitting premier, my team. So it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I was able to become a party whip, a government whip. Then I became a cabinet minister, and after a cabinet minister, we were defeated in 2010. I held my seat by 170 votes. Actually, I lost on election day, but because my advanced polls were so strong, I was able to carry the seat by 170 votes. Nice. So then worked in opposition for 4 years and thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun, but it didn't have the seriousness of government. So I did that for 4 years, and then we won government again in 2014, and I was appointed speaker. I think I was appointed speaker to get me out of caucus and away from everybody, and away from cabinet. I think for the most part, because I a bit of a rebel. I didn't just
Yes.
accept. I didn't just accept everything the way they wanted me to, and
Amen to
uh,
that.
I entered I became an independent candidate in the 2018 election. I was defeated by the candidate for the Liberal Party in my riding, and I ran for a point, to make a point, and I did make my point, and I was very happy with my results in that election. We finished second. Actually, in 2003, the election, first election I ran for the Liberals against Bernard Lord, we finished second as well. And in 1987, I finished second for the NDP.
A lot of second place finishes there.
Well, it was the only time the NDP has ever finished second provincially or federally in any Moncton riding. So it was, I felt good about it. But obviously, I have a very strong social conscience, so I'm left leaning. That's what brought me to the NDP and brought me to the Liberal Party. I was, well publicized personality conflict with the Liberals, but generally, probably their policy fits what I want to do more than most political parties. And I think that that's the utmost importance, is how your tremendous importance is how your ideals fit the party. It's much more important than personalities or anything, because personalities, those things you can fight, but you can't fight your conscience. And you know what, I've got to know, as speaker, I've got to know members of the Conservative Party, the Green Party, former members of the NDP, and as well as the Liberal Party, not the people from the People's Alliance Party so much. A little bit, but they weren't in office when I was there, because as speaker, I'm apolitical, and I meet with the people from all the different political organizations. So I really enjoyed that, and I got to know them and respect everybody in the legislature, or most people in the legislature. And I thoroughly enjoyed that experience in that role, and it really opened my eyes in politics, because you get blinded by the partisanship when you're in the House. I stopped the heckling, because basically in the House everybody's yelling at each other, and you can't you have a hard time finding your place to think, and it's not always relevant, because you get angry and you don't like the people on the other side of the House. Well, you know what? They're there for the same reason you are, to do well. Mm-hmm. And I got to know them much better, one-on-one meetings and what have you. And they're good, strong, quality people. I just didn't align myself with them from everybody from the perspective of where my values are, and they have as many values. It's just in a different place, Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I've coming from in a nutshell. It's the edited edition, but it's certainly an interesting. It's been. I thoroughly enjoyed my career. I've a cabinet minister and speaker of the House, and I was also a city councillor for 3 years before I went into provincial politics, and that prepared me a lot, because the knives, you don't know which direction the knives are coming from in municipal politics. So that was a heck of a good experience, and it kind of brings you up on policy, brings you up on perspective, and it trains you grassroots on how to work hard for your constituents, because constituency work is your number one job. Your number two job would be influencing policy at the provincial level. So, and when it comes to city council, it's it's ground warfare, and it's it's very hands-on. So it was a great training ground. Plus, it also builds you have a soapbox, so it gives you the opportunity to build your profile, which makes you a more substantiated and effective candidate when it comes to the if you choose to run provincially or federally. You're better known, so you're able to leverage that a little bit more.
It's one of the ways to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'll just open it up for everybody. If
Sure. No, that was great. Thank you. I actually learned a little bit about you. I didn't even know, but I had no idea you were a city councillor before. Obviously, I'm a former Liberal, and you've been there yourself. So, do you have an opinion on the obvious demise of the Liberal Party in English New Brunswick? Like, I've explained many times why I've left the Liberal Party, and it was for my own reasons over what I saw as mistreatment of Renee Esphagin, and was not happy with Kevin Vickers being anointed, and something's going wrong. So,
well, you know what, right now there's such a huge divide between languages in New Brunswick, and what I found is that in New Brunswick, in the South, people are supporting the Conservatives. They have found a home with the Conservatives. In the North, they've found a home with the Liberals, and that's what it is. I don't know if it's a demise. I don't really want to get into pointing fingers about that, but right now it's a horrible time to be a provincial politician, and it's a really bad state for the province. And I think that the Conservatives have a serious job ahead of them to create and find and sell their brand in southern New Brunswick. In northern New Brunswick, they have a lot, and there's a real issue when it comes to them having enough francophones to do it, because they're so southerly. I mean, they have Daniel Elaine, who's a very strong, experienced, capable person. So he'll be good for them. But the Liberals have the same problem in the South. They don't have any strong people in southern New Brunswick to help them develop and to spread the word in New Brunswick, in southern New Brunswick.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Sally, did you want to hit Chris with a question or make an observation of anything so far?
I have a statement that I'm going to say that is totally Sally fashion, but Mr. Collins, I did quite a bit of research on you, and I just have to state, and this is a compliment, that you're a complete badass. Like, I really like the fact that you've been a speaker, you've been a whip, you've pissed people off with your opinions, you've stood by your own opinions, no matter what, and that takes quite a bit of courage. And I wish we would see more of that in politics. I've had my own fair share of experience with politicians, and it seems like everybody just always wants to pass the hurdle on to somebody else, where it seems to me where you've tackled quite a few things. And one of them that is quite dear to my heart is childcare as a parent. And I commend you tremendously on your bravery and on your action, because as a parent, I can agree that there is nothing that will stop me from pushing down boulders with my bare hands for my children. And that is what you are striving to do. And I really, I respect and appreciate that. And I would like to know more about your efforts and where our shortcomings are for our children. I know that in the past several weeks, I have had 2 friends have to take their children, both under the age of 10, one under the age of 5, excuse me, to get emergency dental work that is critical, that would determine whether or not their children will have teeth. And they both had to cross the border. And the out-of-pocket expense for them has been absurdly, insanely high. I'd like to know more what your efforts have been. I mean, this is not, I know you work more with the field of childhood oncology and other illnesses, but I would like to know where can we as voters, where can we as activists, where can we as citizens of New Brunswick, how can we improve the situation from your perspective with the experience that you have?
Well, the one thing that I fought hard for when I was in caucus, and that wasn't a public battle. You wouldn't know about that, but I tried to increase the priority of a policy that would allow for funding for parents that take their children out of the province for doctor-referred health care or dental care. Same thing. And, you know, and I had some luck. In 2014, I got the policy passed at a policy convention that I wasn't actually at. It was in 2018 actually, and that policy was a Liberal policy. They passed it publicly at a meeting, and they didn't bring it forward in the election. And I think it's because I was running as an independent, and it would have probably been a bad optics to bring my policy forward to try to defeat me in my own riding. And to try, you know, because it would have given me publicity, which is really small-minded, but I think that that's essentially what happened there. And what I think should happen is right now, families that make under $20,000 a year or $24,000 a year, they're eligible for assistance, and that's great, and that's important, and it's right. But families that make over $20,000 a year, I think up to about $60,000 should be eligible for financial assistance. If it's over $60,000 or $80,000 a year, I think they should be giving a meaningful tax break. Right now, the tax break on the expenses incurred at a province is very minuscule, and essentially what it does is it's nowhere near the tax break you get if you donate to a political party. So if you donate $100 to a political party, I think you get like $60 or $80 back. If you spend $100 on children's health care or a hotel and all these expenses, you're probably getting $5 back. So I think—
So our future is less valuable than our hierarchy.
So there's a significant issue there. You know, I worked within caucus to get it done, and you don't see those battles. You have to cooperate with caucus. That's why it's so important to align yourself with a political party that you believe in, and it fits your, you know, it's not going to fit like a glove. You're going to have to be patient, but you want a political party that your views and your objectives have a good chance of making it within that party. And unfortunately, I was unsuccessful in that bid, and I continue to work on. I just took a volunteer position as the national chair of ACORN, which is a children's cancer advocacy group. So, you know, I'm getting my personal satisfaction there. And ensuring, right now I'm working on ensuring that we get a proton radiotherapy equipment we don't have any in Canada. We don't have any proton treatments in Canada. We're the only G7 nation without proton therapy. There are 40 in the US or 30 in the US, and there's going to be a lot more. And it's not, you know, so I'm working on that, and I'm working right now to ensure the $30 million that the Trudeau government announced about a year ago in a budget is actually going to come through. Right now, they're ignoring my emails and stuff like that. So I'm a little concerned. But right now, and Natasha probably understand this a little more than me. But right now, if for every dollar invested in children's uh, in cancer research in Canada, 3% of it, 3% goes to children's cancer. So, you know, and I don't believe that to be a correct scenario. I think that we need to be about 5 or 7% for us to be effective. I mean, we've only had 3 new drugs for children's cancer developed since 1980. So, you know, we need to do a better job there. I'm very passionate about that issue, as you probably all know, because I lost my son Sean to cancer in 2007. Anyway, thank you. I hope that answered your question, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Courtney, did you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, so this is actually something that I haven't done a lot of research on, but I've always sort of wondered. And you touched on it a little bit, but you know, we're one of the only countries that has universal health care where we're not getting prescription drugs or dental covered. And I think you mentioned that New Brunswick now has this program where if you make, you know, less than $20,000 a year, then I think you can get dental and prescription coverage. But I've always wondered, like, why we don't have universal access to healthcare covered under our universal healthcare in Canada.
There's a simple answer for that. It's money. Quite frankly, that's the type of thing that wins you one election. Ask Tommy Douglas. I mean, Tommy Douglas is the one that brought in Medicare and leveraged it through a minority government, I think, to make sure that it happened. And you know, it's a great policy. We don't have it. And when you talk about under $20,000, that's because those people are eligible for social development money. Okay, that's why, and that's important, and that's right. But yeah, we need to expand on that, and we need to ensure our seniors, for example, you know, it's a significant amount of money for people that retire early. Whether they wanted to or not, for example, and it works out to be about $350 a month to get a decent plan for the average Canadian. So it's a lot of money.
I think we're getting towards the end of this now, but you know, there are still I think a fair amount of older couples where, you know, only the husband worked, for example, and maybe the wife didn't have a full-time job her whole life. And you have one person kind of supporting 2 people, paying for 2, you know, plans for prescription, and it's costing them thousands of dollars a year. So it is like very cumbersome, especially for elderly folks right now.
Oh, it is, and and I didn't get at this. The reason the government hasn't done this yet, and everybody keeps talking about doing it, and you know, I think eventually it'll happen, but it's a lot of money, and I don't think the system is prepared for it either. I don't think government have a fair way of doing it and an equitable way of delivering a program like that. It's you know, it's a significant cost, and it's the interworkings of it is just incredible.
It should be an investment that is, you know, it would be a wise investment, because people that are taken care of and that are healthy and that kind of, you know, have their prescriptions, and especially dental work, it's extremely expensive. And people that are, you know, perhaps missing their, you know, front teeth and whatnot, like, and they can't afford dental work, like, it's crazy expensive. And you're not going to have the confidence to go get a job. You're not going to feel, you know, the better off you feel, the more productive and the more successful you will be. And I kind of look at a universal basic income and things like that. Like, that would be more, I think, beneficial than social assistance, for example. So anyway, that's just my little.
Listen, I agree with you. I think that dental health is, I mean, I had, as a kid, I never had braces. We didn't have enough money for braces, and I had what I used to call outdoor teeth. Um, I had my braces put on when I was 23, and there were the big railroad tracks and everything, and I was so happy to get that done. And you know, I spent 2 years. And a funny story, I got them off, and I'm that afternoon I'm driving down the street and I'm having a bottle of Coke, and the guy behind me rear ends me, and I sheared the tooth off. And when I did that, I had to go in and had to have braces put back on to pull the root down far enough so that I could pull the root down so far enough so they could put a cap on it. So
It was bad luck.
yeah, I know, it was another year with braces on.
That sucks very badly.
I went a full hour. I went a
Wow.
full hour without my braces.
Wow. That sucks.
Yeah.
Natasha, did you want to throw a little something in here or ask Chris something, or what do you have to say? You're muted.
I always forget I'm muted and I talk for a couple of minutes and then I realize. No, I just wanted to say that it's rare to see individuals like yourself in provincial politics. At least I've rarely seen too many people in provincial politics who are going to step up and speak out about issues that they believe in. Idealism in, you know, at least what I've seen in provincial politics is lacking. It's a lot of partisanship and a lot of picking and choosing stuff that they think will play to a majority of their base. And it's really refreshing to see people like yourself. And thank you for everything that you have, you know, you have tried to accomplish. And I really think that it's disappointing. While I'm an immigrant to Canada, so for me, just having the opportunity to be involved in the political process was wonderful, because in my home country, women were not encouraged to be very vocal unless they were from political families. So you wouldn't have women who are just, you know, suddenly decide that this is something that speaks to them and they're going to start getting involved. It would be if you were from a political background. So this was really refreshing and wonderful. And I'm very happy that I can be involved in the political process as a woman in Canada. And I really encourage other women who are immigrants. They're very shy. They're usually, no, I'm, you know, worried I can't speak. My English isn't good. I was like, no, you just need to get involved. It's amazing. And it's so, it's just a lot of energy and a lot of excitement. And it's a lot of experience and a lot of learning. And a lot of people see it as winning. I don't think you should think of it as winning. It's about the learning process and what you can connecting with people and what you can learn from each other. And I was really hoping we would have a shift towards proportional representation. I'm a big fan of that because I think that will water all this, you know, back talk and a lot of this aggression and passive aggressive stuff that you see happening in legislatures. And it's where very little, you know, can get done if one party doesn't want it. And that's not representing everyone. There's a bigger chunk that doesn't get represented than does get represented. So it's, I'm just taking it on a different tack, but I really hoping we can move towards proportional representation. I think that will change the country. I think it's just really needed. So that's my one
Well-
thing to go in there. What do you think of that? I mean, I was directing it at you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you all for the kind words. You've built my ego up, and that that feels pretty good these days because it hasn't been great. With one thing that needs to happen, I'm going to talk about two things, and one thing is that women's organizations like yours really should be, and I love the nonpartisan ideas and that you have. But I really think that organizations like yours should be influencing women strategically on which ridings to run in and which parties to run for. Not telling them which parties to run for, but I think that women's organizations like yours should be trying to get people to become active in certain political or not certain political parties, but in seats that are winnable.
Yeah.
Pure thing. When you're going against demographics and you're putting your name on the ballot, that's nice. But what frustrates me is that these are capable individuals that will bring equality to the legislative assembly. We don't want people just to put their name on a ballot. We want people to win and represent their gender and their capabilities, their personal capabilities, their gender, their geography, and their party in government. And that's what I think is really wrong when parties are always talking about the fact that they have so many women running for them and they're hitting these numbers, but they're not in winnable ridings. So they're not I don't think that people should be booted out of a riding, or a man should be booted out of a riding just because a woman runs there. I think that the democracy should take place and the qualifications. If they're there and they're doing a good job and they're working for the constituents and their riding association is happy, then I think that they should be able to continue with that, right? But when they retire or they move on or they're defeated, I think that that there should be a priority for them to fit into winnable ridings. Now, with regards to proportional representation, I respect your argument a lot, and I understand the argument. I have a few issues with proportional representation. First of all, it's not our Westminster system, so it kind of throws a monkey wrench into everything. I think the proportional representation system also puts people in seats in legislatures or in parliament that haven't won an election because they've got so many percentage. It's entirely possible that a party can get so much percentage, but not win any seats, and then they're going to people are going to be put into representing in the House. So that to me is not the selectively permeable democratic system. I think there should be a hybrid on that, whether it's a runoff election or whether it's to alter just to offset that. Now I understand, but at the same time, when it comes to proportional representation, I think there's a lot of validity there, and I think that it just needs to be tweaked a bit to make it more acceptable. But let's face it, let's be completely honest here. The old line political parties are not going to allow that to happen because it gives birth to new parties. I mean, you only have to look at the situation with the Green Party in New Brunswick right now. The Green Party was given official party status back in 2014. Well, that funding allowed them, and the only reason they got that official party status without they have one member. You're supposed to meet a criteria. It's a certain percentage of votes, certain percentage of seats, and they didn't come close to meeting that. The only reason they got that was that in a crunch, they could be depended upon by a slim majority government that the Liberals held. So, and it set precedent because the same situation is occurring right now with the People's Alliance and the Green members in Fredericton and the government of New Brunswick, because so nobody's paying attention to the actual rules. But getting back to my point, I digress. The situation is that we the political parties, you know, Trudeau promised it and he could not follow through on it. It was just, they don't want to give a foothold to the fringe parties. And, you know, that's the way it is. That's our system. And I'm probably telling you something you already know, but that's, you know, that's the way it is.
Well, we got to do something to combat that, because the back and forth gets us nowhere, and especially here in New Brunswick. You know, and I've spent a fair amount of time there, you know, in back rooms as well, and I don't agree with having a like whipping vote. I think that's you know, when it comes to party platform things, fine, but I think that the individual, the elected representative, should be able to vote according to what their constituents need and want, not what the party always wants. And anyway, I mean, that's just my anyhow, but if you want to throw in there, go ahead. We've got a minute or two left.
Well, that can be an issue too. For example, the Green Party in Fredericton, you know, when they swear an oath to protect you know, take an interest in the Legislative Assembly when they're at Legislative Assembly meetings. But you know what? They can easily be misled and look after priorities for their riding as opposed to priorities for the province as a whole. And whether it's a new an expansion of the art museum downtown, which encroaches on the Legislative Assembly grounds, or the Capitol, or the theater downtown, you know, moving in towards that. I think that those decisions should be separate. They should be looking after the Legislative Assembly. They should be looking after the province of New Brunswick, and not putting the riding ahead. But you know, you can still
Every riding may have different needs, though. Like
you can move the priorities of your riding up through the government ranks, and so they're viewed upon. You can do that. And hey, I've been guilty of it. I mean, I had low income housing. I had 3 low income housing compounds in my riding, and one of them, they were going to take the park down, the playground down, and they're going to pave it. So I fought the Department of Social Development. I fought the minister that was sitting right next to me in caucus meetings to make sure that didn't happen. Those kids get to keep their park. But you know, that was selfish of me to be, you know, because you know, it was a policy that they were applying throughout the province. But we won, and so did the kids. The kids actually protested it.
Paid paradise to put up a parking lot, like, yeah. You know what I mean? Sally, did you want to have a quick say there before we all take off?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for, you know, still winning for the kids, because that is the big deal. And it kind of, again, shows your character and proves the point that you just go with what you think is right. And again, that is lacking. But I wanted to go back to what Natasha was saying and what you were saying to Natasha as well. The names on the ballots that just can't win, or the names on the ballots that are just names on the ballots. How can we change this? Because I feel like it's an uphill battle. And I feel like there's a grip by 2 particular parties and a control by 2 particular parties that don't want that equality to happen, that don't want that representation to happen, and have such a disconnect with the reality. I mean, I have spoken to a Liberal, the previous Liberal leader, and he seemed completely disconnected and out to lunch as to some of the questions and concerns I had as a mother, as an expecting mother, and as a business owner. And he always, like, he kept telling me, well, no, those are federal problems. And at the end of the day, I just kept looking at him, I'm like, then at what point do we take the responsibility as a province to take care of our own citizens and to make sure that we have that equal representation to make those decisions?
It's all about changing public opinion and putting pressure on them. It's really, that's what it boils down to, holding politicians' feet to the fire on their promises. And a good job was done there. with regards to proportional representation. And, you know, it keeps getting defeated. I mean, British Columbia and Prince Edward Island looked very, very closely at it. They did studies on it, and it was voted down by the people of PEI. Voted it down. They eliminated it as an opportunity. I think, like I say, I think you have to make it more palatable and find a way to make it more saleable, because there's a few drawbacks to proportional representation, and you have to identify them and come up with a better like a hybrid system of it, and because it's not flying right now. So
By drawbacks, are you referring to some of the men losing some of their power, or what do you mean specifically? I'm sorry, I call it out as it is.
yeah,
I'm the thorn in everyone's side.
no, I think it's a whole other discussion, but people have legitimate concerns about proportional representation. It's almost something that needs to be tried on an experimental basis, and to see how it happens. But that's very difficult to do as well, because honestly, when it comes to proportional representation, it's not going to guarantee it. There's very few scenarios where the governing party, who have the influence on that, are going to benefit from it. So, it's democracy. It's, this is these people's livelihoods, and they're passionate about it. They don't want to lose seats. They don't want to lose power. It's
But
really,
that's the fine line between democracy and dictatorship. And my parents fled a dictatorship, so it's like
there's some. I guess somebody could draw some parallels there, but but one thing I would like to recommend to you is that you connect yourself with a female current politician, and work with them, and ask if you can observe them and be part of what they're doing, so that you can get a better idea. If your politics are NDP, then talk to, look at it nationally as a member of parliament nationally. If your politics are conservative or liberal, you can find somebody right here. Even Green and People's Alliance parties have people here, so you can do that. But and then you can get a better idea of how it's working, how the politics are working, and there are jobs in politics too. And people who are executive assistants to cabinet ministers, they're getting a great deal of exposure. And it's not, it's important for women to look and try to advance their own political career, but also to help other young women that are coming up that want to get involved in politics.
Exactly.
And nurture them. And I think that's the beauty of your organization. I think you have a lot of potential for growth.
We do, absolutely. And actually, that's our whole aim.
Thank
is
you.
to lift up other women. So we've actually gone over time. It was awesome talking to you, Chris. You've been a great guest. Hopefully, maybe someday here in the future, we'll bring you back again.
Sure. And don't hesitate to add me on Facebook. And you're welcome to connect with me on anything, any other, like Natasha, if you want to have a further discussion on proportional representation, don't hesitate to send me private messages. And
It gives great advice. I will say that. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. You guys are great.
Thank you.
I'm going to get off the call. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Truth Talks out. We'll see everybody again in a week or two. And thank you, Chris. And thank you for the panelists. And especially thank you to the viewers. We wouldn't be doing this without you. So have a great night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Chris.